Hey guys, and welcome to Relationship Chronicles. Today we have a cheating revenge story from one of my subscribers that I will walk you through with. And afterwards I'll give my opinion and advice to the subscriber on how to deal with this situation. This wife has some explaining to do. My wife tried to pass another man's baby on me, so I left her with absolutely nothing. I 37 male, and my wife, 37 female, have many other for about 15 years and married for 10 of those factor in the days when we were still dating. We were really big on children. I had a lot of siblings growing up. Most of them younger than me. And I've always been great with kids. My wife has also always pictured a family with 3 or 4 children since she was young, so we were well in sync on that. Unfortunately, as you grow older, you realize that everything doesn't always go the way that you want it to go. And after we got married about 10 years ago, that quickly became clear. We had dated for about 5 years, so we never felt the need to take our time with anything. We went straight to trying to conceive, but it just didn't work for us, which was very sad. When I say that we tried everything, I really mean it. Even things that you normally know wouldn't work. But we were so desperate for a baby. So you really can't blame us for going all the way. Well, here's a bit of a spoiler alert. It's been 10 years and we don't have a baby yet, though. That's a major part of what I'm writing this for. As you'll soon realize, as all couples looking to conceive have had. There have been times when it looked like things had finally happened only for that time of the month to show up some days late. There were about 2 instances where we actually got a positive pregnancy test. But about 2 months later, in both cases, she miscarried, which was extremely painful for both of us to experience. I know I'm talking a lot about things that have happened in the past, but I think it is very important for you to understand how important it was for both of us to have a child. And before you ask, we've been to several doctors. I've had my managers tested more times than I'd like to admit. And yes, my little summers passed with flying colors. My wife has also had so many different medical tests done for her as well. And for the most part, the experts weren't able to determine why we might be unable to conceive. We've tried IVF as well, but that failed. We considered adoption and surrogacy, but we might be a bit too old-fashioned for that. And those options likely won't expire for us, at least not anytime soon. So there really isn't a rush until we figure out that we truly can't have a child on our own. Also, it's important to realize how much we've gone through at the hands of relatives who both come from rather traditional families, which is likely why we're so big on kids. However, not being able to have our own children yet means that has backfired because traditional families like ours see children as almost a necessity, and without them you've somehow failed at life. I blame a very strong religious police for that. My wife got most of the brunt from both sides of relatives, though I haven't been exempt myself, especially with male relatives looking to make dumb comments about how they've never seen a man from our family. I never will put a baby in someone again. I've gone through all the tests the man can go through and I really don't think I can be convinced any further that there's nothing wrong with me. Anyway, that's enough blabber. Let me get to the actual story. My wife and I sleep with each other very frequently. It used to be because we were trying for a baby, but at a point it just kind of became a habit. Even after we got to a point where both seemed to mostly accept that it wasn't going to happen for us. On my side, though, I want to know that I tried my best to have a child of my own so I don't start to wonder whether I could have done more by the time I'm 80. So since we do the deed so often, there's really no room for me to suspect foul play. On the rare occasions that we think she's pregnant. This time around she missed her period and we started to get excited. But of course we had to temper that excitement because we've gone a decade without any luck in the pregnancy department. So we put all our hopes on a missed period. However, after the next period was missed, my wife decided to do a pregnancy test and lo and behold, it was positive. Honestly, I was ecstatic. Sure, there was a bit of doubt or apprehension that she'd miscarried like the other times, but I think that sigh was a lot less than I thought it would be. I felt like being very positive about it would help the chances of the pregnancy being seen through to the end, though of course, 9 months is a very long time. But I had hope. Well, very thankfully, the pregnancy actually got to the live month mark, and I generally don't think I've ever been happier in my entire life because we had never had a pregnancy last that long before. Honestly, I had been hopeful, but there was a part of me that never imagined. It's the emergency get to that point. My wife was so happy too, obviously, and I was glad to see her like that because she really got the worst part of the scrutiny from relatives. And this was like a big middle finger to all of them. In fact, I noticed that my wife's relatives were so much nicer to me than they ever were. And while it sucked that it seemed that part of their kindness was locked behind us having a baby, I was glad to have it regardless. Now, the part where I realized that something might have been wrong was when we were watching a local TV show and there was a plotline about a woman who cheated on her husband and got pregnant with her lover's baby. This is a show that we've watched quite a bit, but I noticed something was off when my wife said that she wanted to watch something else. She was in to push you about it. And when I asked why she wasn't interested anymore, she put it on the pregnancy. A lot changes when a woman is pregnant. So honestly, I wasn't too suspicious about it. I eventually switched to another program and she seemed to be more settled at that point. But for the rest of the night, she was acting odd and I noticed her shooting me glances. But apart from that, I didn't dwell on it too much. I think it became evident that I had to figure things out when my wife and I were watching TV on either a few days after that. I remember it was a weekend and the exact same episode of that show came on as a rerun. Her reaction was very similar. She suddenly didn't feel like watching it anymore. And that was when I realized that I might have to get to the bottom of things. I asked her she was okay, and she said that she was again citing the pregnancy as the reason for her wanting to watch something else. That time around, I didn't notice any odd behavior, though. Maybe I simply wasn't as observant. The second time, I was really overthinking things at that point. The day after, which was just a few days ago, I spoke to one of my good friends about the whole situation and he was the one that made me see that it could be potentially a case of my wife feeling uncomfortable with what had happened in the TV episode because that's what she was guilty of. Honestly, it's sanitary, ridiculous to me. But the more he spoke, the more it started to make sense. The thing is, I didn't want to accept what he was saying because that would potentially mean that what is supposed to be the happiest mode of my life is about to turn into a whole case of treachery and infidelity. And I really don't know if I can deal with that, honestly. I'll admit that part of me doesn't even want to dive into this to potentially find the answers, because I'm afraid that what I find could devastate me. And after waiting for so long for a child, I'm not really sure whether I could take that if it were to happen. So that's what brings me here. I've tried my best to drop all the details I can about the situation. Hopefully you guys might have a theory or two about why that specific episode of the show makes my wife so shifty. And maybe it has nothing to do with what happens in that episode. Maybe it really just is the pregnancy hitting her at the worst times. I'll stick around to read comments and answer the ones that I can. So I see some people asking me to detail her reaction to the episode a bit better, so I'll try to. When the show came on and the episode started, she settled in with excitement the way that she always does, especially when it was clear that it was an episode that we hadn't seen before. However, as the plot points started to become clearer and clearer, again, I didn't think too much of it at the time because her reason for it was very valid. However, it was the second time, a minute or two end of the episode. Once it was clear it was a rerun and she realized what episode it was a rerun of. That's when a similar change in her demeanor came up. This time around, we didn't even get to the part where it was clear that it was a story about infidelity. Again, I didn't pay attention to this time because I was really wondering what was going on and I must have sort of zoned out. But I genuinely don't think she acted as weird as the first time. Maybe because we didn't actually get to the part of that episode. Edit to some of that, I should ask her straight up. The 10 years of marriage is meant to afford honesty. You have much to learn is all I can say. Edit 3 I've gone through like 90% of the comments, but they keep popping up so I'll have to call wraps on it at this point. But I've seen a lot of supportive comments and suggestions, so we'll see what my next move could potentially be and I'll get back to you all. Let's move on to my thoughts and advice for person who's dealing with the problem. My heart goes out to you. Your story is a powerful and emotional roller coaster. Have an open and honest conversation with your wife about your concerns. Approach the conversation with empathy and listen to her perspective. Remember, communication is key. Take care of yourself during this challenging time. Your emotional well-being is crucial. I wish you the best of luck moving forward. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. Take care.